Afternoon.
Afternoon. It looks like we have all of the commissioners here, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's online and for the accommodations people are making for this. I'd also like to thank those of you who wrote comments or are ready to testify today about the recruitment. I'd also like, if I could, to take a moment to thank Director Melcher, both for his work on this recruitment, which is a lot, and for his service as the ODF&W director. One of the commissioners called this recruitment an important opportunity, and it's every bit of that. It's also a chance to recognize some of Kurt Melcher's legacy and achievements. His legacy for running a well-managed agency is widely appreciated. And one result of a well-managed agency is that it creates a platform for staff to be able to focus right on their work. They do it well, they're highly qualified, and kudos to Kurt for running the kind of agency that attracts that kind of staff and creates such a platform. We rely heavily on the judgment, the skills, the expertise, the commitment of the now nearly 1,200 staff across Oregon. They get the work done, they implement the policies we set, the laws the Oregon legislature passes, and they're the ones who protect and enhance Oregon's fish, wildlife, and habitat resources for us now and for those still to come. So I just wanted to mention that, both Kurt's legacy for a very well-managed agency and the one that leaves a legacy of a highly skilled, well-staffed, well-positioned to continue the critical work that this agency does for Oregon. It's a remarkable accomplishment and it's a real asset to the state. So I'll move then to what's going to happen today. And in terms of today, we have just two agenda items, the temporary rule since the last meeting, and of course the recruitment plan for the new director. We'll discuss the components of the recruitment plan, especially the attributes we're looking for in the new director and the director's job description. Then we'll hear public testimony, and then we'll consider the approval of the recruitment plan. So that's the meeting. For introductions, I'm Mary Wall, Chair of the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Commission, and I'd like to call our Friday, January 26, 2024 meeting to order. I live in Langlois on Oregon's south coast, and we'll go next to the other commissioners to introduce themselves, starting with Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde.
Good afternoon. I am Becky Hatfield Hyde, and I am this afternoon in nice, snowy, rainy Brothers. So we're getting moisture. Thank goodness.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner King.
Hello, all. Dr. Leslie King. I am representing, of course, the entire state of Oregon, but I reside in Portland. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Labhart.
Good afternoon, everybody. Mark Labhart. I live in Sisters, and I'm currently in the ODF&W conference room today because I'm traveling.
Thank you. Commissioner Khalil.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Khalil. I also live in Portland, Oregon.
Thank you. And Commissioner Spellbrink.
Yeah, good afternoon also. And Bob Spellbrink, Siletz, Oregon.
Thank you. And then could we go to Director Melcher for an introduction, and then Michelle Tate?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Wall, and good afternoon. My name is Kurt Melcher. I'm the Director of the Department of Fish and Wildlife here, and appreciate the kind words, Chair Wall. It's truly been my honor to serve as the Director for almost the last 10 years, but also to be with the agency since 1985, and truly been it's been a great ride and a great career, and I don't have any regrets. So with that, Michelle.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Tate. I'm here today to provide support to the Commission and the Director to be able to hold this meeting virtually. I want to appreciate everyone for your patience as we still deal with technology. I think today we're on track. I do want to ask the folks that are here to testify, if you can please keep your cameras and microphones muted during the meeting, and when Chair Wall calls upon you to speak is when you can go ahead and unmute those. I appreciate your help, and you have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Then let's go to the director's report to adopt temporary rules. Director Melcher.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Wall and Commissioners. I believe we have 4 temporary rules that have been signed since your last meeting 2 weeks ago. And so those do require your ratification. Happy to answer any questions you might have about them.
Kurt, could you just mention the connection between the Ilwaco fire and our temporary rules? It was in Washington, we're in Oregon, but there's a connection. Would you mind just mentioning what that is for that rule?
Sure. The connection, Chair Wall, is, and of course, there was a very major dock fire, if you will, fish processing plant fire in Ilwaco, Washington on, I believe it was Tuesday of this week or maybe Monday. And the crab fishery north of Cape Falcon has not opened yet. It's been delayed, waiting for meat fill. So with the scheduled opener of February 1st, all of the crab gear was still, of course, in port. It was not deployed in the ocean as it would ordinarily have been. And as a result of that fire, I believe about, I want to say 3,000, but I could be wrong, about 3,000 or so crab pots, which were stowed there, were damaged. And each pot, of course, there's a number of regulatory marking requirements associated with every commercial Dungeness crab pot. There's marking requirements on the pot itself. There's marking requirements related to the buoys. And then, of course, there's buoy tags, which we utilize to track pot limit compliance. So pot limits, we have 200, 300, and 500 pot maximum limits depending on the vessel's history. And while the fire was in Washington, of course, we have reciprocity with those ports, and many permit holders in the Lower Columbia region either have permits for both states or they participate on an Oregon permit out of a Washington port. And so not only were Washington commercial Dungeness crab pots damaged, but also Oregon Dungeness crab pots. So the temporary rule before you today is essentially waiving some of those marking requirements for these vessels, the handful of vessels that suffered the losses. And because what's going on right now is you don't just go out and get 300 or 500 crab pots tomorrow. It takes many, many days or weeks to prepare that gear. And so what's going on right now within the industry is there's a lot of basically community generated cooperation where individuals with either excess pots or pots where they've decided that they were done fishing for the year on the south, they've offered and they are loaning that gear to these fishers who lost their gear in the north. But of course, those pots are all marked with the original fisherman's markings, regulatory markings. So this rule, sorry for the long-winded answer, but I could even go longer. I'm going to try and cut it short. But so this rule will essentially waive that marking requirement for those people who are having to get borrowed crab pots on short notice.
Great, thank you for the context. Any questions, commissioners? If not, could we have a motion on the 4 temporary rules?
Madam Chair, this is Mark. I would move to ratify the 4 temporary rules set forth on the January 26, 2024 agenda.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to ratify the 4 temporary rules as read into the record. Michelle, will you call the roll?
King,
Yes.
Gebhardt,
Yes.
Spellbrink,
Yes.
Khalil. Yes. Hatfield Hyde,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes. Thank you. Then we will move to the director recruitment exhibit, which is Exhibit A. And I think what we'll do is have Director Melcher walk through the plan itself, an overview of it. I know that the commissioners have already seen this and heard a bit about it last time we met. I'm not, just for everybody online and everybody listening, Director, if you could walk through that and mention the minimum qualifications and the description as well as the attributes, that would be terrific.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wall. And just before I do that, one additional word on temporary rules. We're also working on a temporary rule associated with the Dungeness crab fishery related to the replacement buoy tags, and the individuals will be seeking replacement buoy tags from us, and we will be waiving the fees for those tags simply because we already have those tags in stock and they've already paid for them once and they lost them in the fire. So that will be coming to you at your next meeting.
Okay.
For ratification.
Good to know.
So with regard to the recruitment process, the attachments, you have the same list of attachments that you had a couple weeks ago. I will mention a few things that have changed. We did not change the minimum qualifications. Feedback we received last meeting, as well as the public feedback, was supportive of the minimum qualifications that we had laid out. There was some, I will call it restructuring of the position description. I would say not changes of substance, but really just largely changes of organization, and also changes to reflect current program and current language describing those programs here at the department. Desired attributes, again, are largely unchanged. There was a lot of discussion. Of course, these bullet points are not noted or are not numbered, but there was a lot of discussion, you recall, at the last meeting about the bullet near the middle that starts in the current version. It starts with someone who understands and appreciates. There has been some modification of that language, both to reflect comments we heard from you, as well as comments in working collaboratively with the governor's office. I would say, and of course, all these attributes are, they describe the things that you are going to be looking for as you review the final candidates. And as the screening panel reviews the qualified applicants, the screening panel will first be referring to these desired attributes as they consider who advances to become a final candidate. And then similarly, these desired attributes will help inform the commission as they move forward with the actual final hiring process. With regard to the actual recruitment plan, which is attachment 2, there have been some changes here, and I will highlight those. And before I do highlight those, I do want to also just remind you all that I know these dates are very aspirational. It's ambitious, it's aspirational. They may not be realistic, but the dates can change without commission action based on how fast the process moves forward. So I'll just highlight a couple. Of course, we changed the dates and added the fact that you're going to be taking action on this today, as opposed to the fact that it was just proposed 2 weeks ago. I'll mention that the job posting, which we thought was going to occur earlier this week, will actually probably occur on Monday of next week. So the job posting did not go out on January 22. It'll go out on January 29, which means, of course, the closing date, it'll be open for a month. So the closing date similarly will change. Another item that we added here that I thought was really important just to daylight for you all is that I think it would be best at the next commission meeting on February 16th if the commission could name the interim director, and because I will be retiring at the end of March, and I think there's a very good chance that your recruitment process won't be completed by then, and there's also, of course, a chance, depending on who the successful candidate is, that they may not be able to be here on April 1. depending on where they're coming from or what their previous work engagements are. So I'm recommending that at the February 16th commission meeting that you appoint an interim director that would be effective not until April 1. And that will give that person a little bit of time, of course, overlap with me to get up to speed on a variety of issues. But most importantly, the recruitment process upon my departure, assuming it's not, the recruitment process is not completed yet, the recruitment process is going to fall to the interim director. So we've added that to the list of actions here. The rest is largely unchanged, albeit I will mention again that the dates may change. And then I did want to note one also proposed change, and actually I'm going to modify it from the draft that's here right now, but in the description of the screening panel, the screening panel will include 2 commissioners, 1 liaison from the governor's office and the executive recruiter. And then we've added some additional language that says, additionally, the screening panel may include the governor's tribal affairs director or the executive director of the Legislative Commission on Indian Services. And that initial change we made there was really to reflect a lot of interest that we've been hearing, and perhaps some of which you're going to hear today from some of Oregon's tribes and their interest in this position and the candidate that you select. So those are the main changes to this process. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or Chair Wall, if there's something else you wanted me to highlight.
No, there's not something else to highlight. I think, thank you for doing the overview. And commissioners, if there are some initial questions now, let's go ahead and ask them. And then we'll hear public testimony and then come back to this so that we can either revise and then approve or just approve the plan as it is. So, and the plan includes, of course, the position description, the minimum qualifications, and the attributes as well that you heard about. So if there are any initial questions, and Kurt already asked one of the big ones, which is the timing, but looks like Commissioner King, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall. So yes, Director Melcher has already addressed the timing, which I always thought was ambitious at best. I struggled a little bit, and I think Michelle and I worked out, I just got the timing wrong in terms of where these documents are. Are they on the new commission page, like all the updated, or I guess most recent ones that we can look at and or download? Because I just have the ones from 2 weeks ago, which again have just been modified just slightly, but I just wanted to know where to look and where was the resource to make sure I was up to speed, because I know that I sent in text for bullet 13 that seemed to touch a lot of nerves for people, and I worked with Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde on that, and then I don't know what it looks like now or if it's even there. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Wall and Commissioner King. Those the updated documents are all posted on the Commission webpage associated with today's agenda, and you should have also got a link to them that was emailed to you several days ago.
Yes, I got something. I definitely got the links in the document. For example, all of the at least the email, at least that I saw, had like the temporary rules. It had all of the Exhibit A's and all of the folks that wrote letters, et cetera, but I did not see an updated version of the bullets and of the recruitment plan. Now, maybe I just missed it, but if it is on the website, Michelle did tell me that I linked in before it was set up properly or something, because when I saw it, it was blank. There was nothing there, but apparently now there is.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one right now, but that's the version I'm looking at is from the web.
Okay. Thank you. I happily can check it now, because like I said, I looked and I saw nothing. Thank you.
And Commissioner King, just to be clear, the attributes as they're drafted right now, number 13 doesn't reflect the most recent information that you sent in. So if you, not right now, but after we hear public testimony, we can come back to that. If you would like to read it now, you can do that.
Oh, so I have, oh boy, paper storm, as you call it, Chair. Hang on. Yeah, so Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde and I had a back and forth with the 2 bullets that I sent, that initially I read into the record. I sent them off for other folks to see them because it is hard to grasp it all just from hearing it. And so Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde and I sent in the most recent edits of that bullet to you, I do believe, or we sent it somewhere. It went to somewhere in the Ethernet. But I kept a copy and I absolutely can read them. And it's replacement for the one that the change agent one, which is the bullet 13. Would you like me to read them now? And then I guess my question is, are they integrated? Will they eventually be integrated into the draft and like the governor's office will see this? Like what's happening with this?
Let me come right back to your question, if I could, Commissioner King, because Commissioner Hatfield Hyde has her hand up and may be addressing this very piece. So okay. Commissioner Hatfield Hyde.
Yes, I just want to weigh in and say that I actually do think that maybe this got lost in translation, and I know that this particularly the bullet point in the attributes that has to do with sort of the big tent concept. I think that it did get changed some, and Commissioner King and I did have a little back and forth conversation about that. And I have even then tried to adapt it based on the new rendition that came out again as well. So I don't know that this is the right time to discuss that, but maybe, and also how appropriate that is as we relate to the relationship with the governor's office on this, and maybe Director Melcher has a thought on that as well.
Well, I guess, yeah, I think we could probably spend, the better part of a couple of weeks wordsmithing virtually, and I don't know if that's the most productive thing to do. With regard to the governor's office, I'll just say that we have shared these, Mary and I have shared the current draft with the governor's office, and they like them. That's
good. And I think we don't have to spend weeks wordsmithing all of them. I do think that we could very quickly look at some different language and get a sense of the commission pretty fast if they like that idea. And I don't know, Commissioner King, if you want me to take a stab at it again, a little different than what you and I worked on, but pretty similar, to just throw it out there, maybe to think about as we're getting more public testimony, but that's up to you, Chair Wall, if you feel like that's okay.
If you are able to put it out there right now, just tell us what your proposal is for that particular bullet. I think it would be useful for you to say it so people can think about it as they hear public testimony. I think that this is probably the key bullet that there will be commissioner discussion on. So I don't think we're opening up every bullet, but there is some interest in this one. So I think it would be useful if you would go ahead and let us know where you landed on that one as you would propose it.
Okay. All right. And Michelle, maybe Michelle could write this down or somebody so that we have it in case somebody wanted to email it around, or I don't know. I wrote, the ideal individual recognizes the diverse ways that Oregonians and tribes interact with fish and wildlife, including the shared commitment to habitat conservation and ecosystem services. At the same time, the individual exhibits a commitment to being inclusive and bringing more Oregonians under the big tent, where ODF&W manages fish and wildlife, in trust for them and future generations.
Michelle, are you able to capture that and put it in email?
I am. I've got to pull it out of I've got it in the transcription, but I will be able to pull that out. Did you want that done while this meeting's going on, or do you want me to do that after?
If you can send it to folks now, that's terrific, but I'm not sure that everybody will have the capability of reading it. So we'll recognize that we heard it. We'll hear it again later when we come back to discussing these after the public testimony, and figure out at that point whether to include it in the attributes or postpone that decision. If that works for everybody, that's what I would propose. Commissioner King, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. That is not the current thing that is there. What Becky just read, what Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde read, and it's absolutely not what she and I created and worked on. So I think we really need to figure out what is happening. Like, I mean, I need to see in writing what is where, is what I'm trying to say.
Here's the situation as I understand it. The current bullet is different. The current bullet that talks about what we're calling big tent is different than the one you just heard from Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
Right.
Michelle transcribed what she heard from Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
Right.
And can send that to people, but I'm not sure how much access you will all have to seeing it. So we may try to get it up on the screen or something like that by the time we get through all of public testimony.
Okay.
So Michelle, if you're able, it would be useful to have both the one that Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde read and the one that is the big tent bullet in the list of the current list of attributes, which starts someone who understands and appreciates both the interests. If we can have both of those able to go up on a screen after public testimony and while when the commissioners are ready to discuss what to do about approving the plan, that would be great. Questions on that? Does that make sense?
Thank you, Mary. I'll work on getting those done.
Perfect. Other questions or thoughts, commissioners, or comments before we go to public testimony? Thank you all. I think we are ready for public testimony, and we have 12 people who are ready to testify. We will start with, as is our convention, we will start with the elected official. What we're looking for, of course, is, as always, if people will be careful to be we're looking for a very respectful, open conversation about this. People have clearly different views, but if you can we're very interested in hearing what people have to say. We learn about things from hearing how you think about things. It would be useful if you could keep your comments to what you're thinking, and if we could avoid any kind of disrespect for other people who are either testifying or listening, that would be terrific. So let's go ahead with testimony, and we'll start with Senator David Brock Smith.
Thank you, Chair Wall. Commissioners, good afternoon. For your record, State Senator David Brock Smith, Senate District 1. Actually, with the new commission outlay under the Basin model, I have influence over 4 commission seats, I think, as we move forward with those replacements. I want to first thank you, Director Melcher, for your 40 years of service to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. An exemplary service, sir. You have been, as Chair Wall gave you in accolades in her opening comments, not only a dedicated public servant to the ODF&W for Oregon for 40 years, but it's 10 years as its director. I am and have been incredibly impressed with all of your work. It has been an honor of mine to be able to work with you, not only as a county commissioner, but as a legislator for the last 7 years. And I just want to thank you for your commitment to preserving the access and the habitat, and really working across the stakeholders, with the stakeholders across the spectrum that is needed. To that end, commissioners, I'll keep my my comments brief. I look forward to the process as you're moving forward with this. I am happy that in the recruitment outline that you are making sure that you're bringing those finalists to the public, so that there will be public engagement with the finalists in the position. I'm curious who is going to screen and decide on what those 3 or 4 questions are going to be for the public. But as I mentioned, with Director Melcher's 40 years of service, 10 years again as the director, and Chair Wall's accolades of his exemplary service in the beginning of her comments, I would stress that we have very unique situations and laws in this state when it comes to Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and that we have, as we've had with Director Melcher, outstanding candidates within the existing department here in Oregon, and would really like to see, as we move forward, a great opportunity and emphasis so that we can bring one of our own up through the ranks, because they have that institutional knowledge that is so incredibly important to this position, as we've seen with Director Melcher's service. So thank you, Commission, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioners, questions of Senator Brock Smith? Seeing none, we'll go to the other people who are signed up to testify, and everyone will have 3 minutes for testimony. We'll start with Leonard Krug, Michael O'Casey, and then Sristi Kamal.
And Chair Wall, before Mr. Krug starts, I just wanted to let you know I will run, we don't have a timer on the screen here, so I'll just run the timer from my phone, and I'll have the alarm appropriately set. So when you hear the alarm going off, you'll know your time's up.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Right. Appreciate it. Mr. Krug, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Commissioners and Director Melcher. I'll be brief. My name is Leonard Krug, and I serve as the president of the Oregon Anglers Alliance. Now, we know that we need a director that will have clear, concise, and consistent goals for conservation. You know, a biology professor once explained the difference to me between the preservationist and the conservationist belief system. And he explained that a preservationist believes that a man is a separate entity from the environment and should do nothing to alter its natural course. The conservationist, however, believes that man is an integral part of the natural world and has the responsibility to actively manage it for the enhanced well-being of all living things. Among other management methods, trapping, hunting, and fishing are all recognized as viable tools of conservation. Today, we have both preservationists and conservationists in this room. We both somehow believe that we have the power to influence the commission, the new director, and the governor, perhaps, to adapt management strategies that align with our own ideologies. So you, the commission, along with the director and the governor, I should say new director, must be united as a team and agree on a few basic strategic goals that contain no gray areas. Will we follow a preservation or a conservation style of management? At times, these strategies have been somewhat blurred, causing a lot of divisiveness. It is vital that you provide clear, concise, and especially consistent goals in order to accomplish your mission and raise the bar for Oregon's credibility. And finally, thank you, Director Melcher, for setting the bar at a very high level. And we look forward to seeing you on the water.
Thank you, Leonard. We're seeing no hands up. We will go to Michael O'Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall and commissioners, and in particular, Director Melcher, for your long tenure of leadership for the Commission and for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. My name is Michael O'Casey, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Pacific Northwest region for the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. And I live in Sisters, Oregon, but I'm about to depart for the Chucker Hills for one last weekend during the season. And for the past 5 years, I've been working with the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership. I have been blessed to work for an organization of hunters and anglers that take great pride in being both the stewards and the beneficiaries of our natural resources. And our commitment to the stewardship of Oregon's incredible wildlife is deeply rooted in the egalitarian principles of the public trust for wildlife conservation that was forged by hunters and anglers like me, who recognized that humanity's capacity to affect change was real. And I look forward to working with the Commission as we work to identify the new director. And the egalitarian principles of the public trust for wildlife conservation are a cornerstone for us and for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And that's through the North American model, as well as understanding other emerging strategies that benefit wildlife management. But the North American model has been a cornerstone for decades that emphasizes sustainable use, scientific management, and the allocation of resources for the benefit of all citizens. Furthermore, the income brought in by hunters and anglers is significant. From the 21-23 biennium, a substantial portion of ODF&W's funding comes from today's hunters and anglers that benefit the conservation and restoration of our fish and wildlife species. In light of this, we propose the following considerations for the recruitment process. To prioritize the knowledge of the North American model, the new director should have a thorough understanding of the model, as well as a proven track record for implementing its principles in wildlife management. We want to recognize the role of hunters and anglers, with the new director acknowledging the significant role that we play in funding wildlife conservation efforts, and should be committed to maintaining and enhancing this partnership, as well as being inclusive and balanced with other stakeholders. The director should be adept at balancing the diverse interests of all, including those primarily engaged in wildlife viewing, habitat protection, and conservation, while recognizing the same role that traditional stakeholders play. We trust that the Commission will consider these aspects with the gravity they deserve, and that they ensure the next director is well equipped to lead our state's wildlife management into a future that honors our heritage, respects our contributions, and continues to uphold the principles of sound wildlife-based conservation. I want to thank you for your guys' time, and I look forward to partnering with you through a stakeholder group to identify the next director, and wish you the best, Director Melcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Let's go to Sristi Kamal, and after that it will be Joseph Janowitz, Jenny O'Brien, and Tim Barbalatos. So Sristi.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, Director Melcher, and members of the Commission. My name is Dr. Sristi Kamal, and I'm the Deputy Director at Western Environmental Law Center. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today on the process of hiring the next director of ODF&W. WELC is also part of the Oregon Wildlife Coalition, and I believe the coalition submitted a letter on this issue that I would urge you to read. Members of the coalition had previously provided oral testimony, so I'll try my best not to be redundant here. We appreciate the updated desirable attributes language and would urge additional clarity to point 13, which I think, hearing the Commission's discussion a few minutes earlier, you are already aspiring for. That ODF&W, while continuing their commitment to traditional consumptive users, the agency will also prioritize those who benefit from the many other ways from the 88% of Oregon's fish and wildlife that are not hunted or fished. Building a bigger tent, as the attributes list calls it, will also mean commitment to engage with historically underrepresented and underserved communities, as well as learning how to communicate with our youth. Our understanding is that the recruitment process will consult with the federally recognized tribal governments in Oregon, which we very much appreciate and support. We also appreciate that the desirable attributes list recognizes the importance of future directors' ability to work with these tribal governments. In the past few years, there has been an increased recognition within ODFNW of climate change impacts and biodiversity loss. Examples of such increased recognition include the climate and ocean change policy and the reestablishment of the Habitat Division. We now need a leader to build on this momentum that has been created and bring fresh perspective and energy into the agency to drive action. To find that leader, we need a recruitment process that is thoughtful, deliberate, and not rushed. With respect to that, we are concerned with the proposed timeline of the recruitment process, as Director Melcher and Commissioner King called it ambitious. We were unclear as to why the decision on the interim director was made, and Director Melcher's comments added some context, but having an interim director didn't change the proposed timeline for the recruitment process. In addition to allowing any potential candidate to have the time they need to make the transition, it should also allow for potentially additional time for the actual hiring process. Otherwise, we kind of fail to see the purpose of this decision. We lastly want to stress that this is very important to us, that at least there is equal importance for exploring external candidates along with internal ones, and for a process that is truly open and transparent and not just a box checking exercise to ultimately land on a predetermined outcome. I look forward to supporting you in the public engagement sections of this recruitment process, and let us know how we can be helpful throughout this recruitment process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sristi. We'll go to then Joseph Janowitz, and then Jenny O'Brien and Tim Barbalatos. So Joseph.
Joseph is our one caller that's on the phone, so we might give him an extra minute to get unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Michelle, can we come back to Joseph and go to, oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yes. Go ahead, okay. Joseph.
All right, I'm Joseph Janowitz. I live in Gold Beach. Good afternoon to you all. I'm a fisherman and an occasional hunter. I'm on the board of directors of Curry Anadromous Fishermen, a diverse group of 150 volunteers who run the Indian Creek Hatchery. We're a salmon and trout enhancement program promoting habitat improvement, education, and raising Chinook salmon. I'd like to make a few comments in support of our current Fish and Wildlife North American conservation model. Fisheries and wildlife are a public resource, and as government officials, you have a large role in managing our wildlife and fisheries on behalf of all citizens to ensure the long-term sustainability of these resources. In the past, before our wildlife protection laws were enacted, commercial operations often decimated populations of some species, making it illegal to buy and sell meat and parts of game removed a huge threat to the survival of many of these species. The market in fur bearers continues in Oregon as a highly regulated activity and a proven management tool. Fisheries and wildlife are a shared resource that must not be wasted. Our laws prohibit killing wildlife for frivolous reasons, and every person has an equal opportunity under our laws to participate in hunting and fishing. Science, not social opinion and trends, is the proper tool for the discharge of fisheries and wildlife policy. To manage fisheries and wildlife resources fairly, objectively, and knowledgeably, your decisions must be based on sound science. Fish and wildlife population surveys and analysis done by professional wildlife biologists, not influenced by testimony promoting social trends or mores. Finally, on the topic of the new director of the ODFW Commission, it appears the list of stakeholders provided to the third-party recruiting agency to be is unbalanced. There's not a single trout and salmon enhancement program listed. A new director of the ODFW Commission must not be an, quote, agent of change, as stated in one listing, but rather an advocate for the conservation of our fisheries and wildlife, and an ambassador to our hunters and fishermen, trappers and outdoorsmen, hikers, bird watchers, and conservationists, all those who choose to enjoy our abundant resources in their own way. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Joseph. Jenny O'Brien.
Hi, thank you, everybody. Happy Friday. Director Melcher, congratulations on your upcoming retirement. Commissioners and fellow Oregonians, as we convene to chart a path forward for leadership at the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, I come before you as a representative of the Wild Steelhead Coalition and Alliance to advocate for a future that honors and protects the natural legacy of Oregon. In this critical moment, our ask is straightforward. We implore ODFW to appoint a director who embodies a genuine investment and concern for the preservation of our wildlife and fisheries. This individual must also possess a deep understanding of the challenges posed by our changing climate and exhibit a readiness to address these challenges head-on. Oregon is blessed with a rich tapestry of ecological diversity, a treasure that demands our utmost respect and care. At the heart of this diversity are our wild fish populations, iconic and vital, not just to our ecosystems, but to our cultural and economic fabric. These resilient creatures are a barometer of the health of our rivers and streams and a symbol of the wild spirit of Oregon. The appointment of a new director for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife represents not just a change in leadership, but an opportunity to recommit to the conservation and sustainability of our wildlife, especially our wild fish. It is not just a matter of policy or management, but a moral imperative that we must face. The implied duty of the ODFW and our publicly elected officials is clear: to act in the best interest of these species. In conclusion, the decision before us is about more than just selecting a new leader for Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. It's about making a statement of our values as Oregonians and setting a course that ensures our natural heritage is preserved and enriched for generations to come. Our request is clear and urgent. Appoint a director whose dedication to the conservation of Oregon's natural heritage is unwavering, particularly for our wild fish populations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Jenny. The next person is Tim Barbalatos. Go ahead, Tim.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Tim Barbalatos. I'm a retired Oregon State Police game cop, sometimes called the Elk Sheriff. But anyway, through the decades, I've been a strong supporter of the agency. That said, we've not always agreed. I've known Director Melcher for years, and he can testify to that. First, I have a couple individual comments. Director King, I see you got your big tent analogy into the draft. Our camp has one that's 16 by 60. Is that big enough? Director Hatfield Hyde recently commented on the amount of public input received on the coyote contest. Well, as they say, you should have been here yesterday. Director Melcher and I were around for many, if not all, of the wolf meetings. The coyote contest input pales in comparison by volume. This morning, I rewatched the commission meeting of January 12th, as well as the coyote contest meeting. I also reread much of the written testimony. I realize we're living in a changing world, and I know we have to adapt. I note a strong push toward a more democratic methodology when it comes to wildlife policy. In the same breath, there's also a demand to use the best available science. Those terms can easily be contradictory. There are many times when wildlife decisions won't win you any popularity contests. So be it. A new director would need to have the justification and fortitude to weather those controversies. The department is being pulled in a multitude of directions by a diverse and ever-expanding constituency, and that's fine. What is not fine is the unfunded cost of those demands. Historically, the lion's share of the agency's budget has been funded by consumptive users. As traditional sources dwindle, so does funding. Going forward, I would hope that the agency always questions stakeholders. How is the agency going to pay for your program? Or what existing program should be sacrificed to fund the new initiative? Lastly, Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde recently commented on the lack of participation by significant segments of Oregon. That situation is repeating itself in the new director selection process. Many traditional groups and agricultural communities are not participating. Why? Are they being overwhelmed? Have they thrown up their hands saying, what's the point or what's the use? The selection process should address that lack of participation. It's called being inclusive. Thank you. And lastly, personally, Kurt, you served with integrity. I count you as a friend. I wish you well, as does my family. Good luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And seeing no questions, we'll go on to the next three people, Josh Batsworth, Cliff Lance, Stan Steele. So if we could go to Josh.
Mary, it doesn't look like Josh is in the room at the moment.
Okay, we'll come back to
I haven't
that.
seen him.
Okay, thank you. Cliff Lance, Stan Steele, and Carrie Spurgeon. So Cliff Lance.
Okay, thank you. Chair Wall, Commissioners, Director Melcher. My name is Cliff Lance, and I am testifying today representing South Coast Anglers and STEP Association. We are the volunteer organization that created and built what's now called the Rumreich Morgan Creek Hatchery. I have personally been involved since day one with STEP and capturing the first wild broodstock, creating now what is a Chinook production program second only to the Columbia River. This all-volunteer program has long been recognized as the best volunteer STEP program in the state of Oregon. The best part of our program we didn't see coming is the educational component. Over 40 years, hundreds and hundreds of our community children have passed through our facility working alongside volunteers, learning the importance of salmon and the wonders of nature in their own backyard. All this being said, our request is that the new director appreciate what's been accomplished in our community and support us going forward. At the present time, it is imperative that the new director embrace and support our 40 years of work and accomplishments, despite the anti-hatchery elements that fly in the face of what we've accomplished and all that we stand for. We would like to thank our outgoing Director Melcher for his outstanding job fostering fish and wildlife conservation and for the future generations of Oregonians. Hopefully in his retirement, we'll see him in a boat in our bay, enjoying the fruits of our labor. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Cliff. We'll go next to Stan Steele, then Carrie Spurgeon, and then finally John Ogan is the last person. So go ahead, Stan.
Well, I want to thank you, Chair Wall and commissioners, and Kurt, right off the bat, you've been an outstanding director. You're exemplary. I couldn't say enough about the direction, and we haven't always agreed, but we've always agreed to work together. So I want to thank you for allowing the Oregon Trappers Association and the Oregon United Sporting Dogs Association a few minutes to discuss the search for a new director. Our Sustainable Youth Organizations stand committed to working alongside all interests in the search for the director. While we understand there are competing ideologies and what attributes and qualities the next director must possess, we believe that we all share one common thread, or, less Dr. King, I like the big tent. We all want what's best for Oregon, for its wild things, its wild places. Keeping that credo in mind, we look forward to engagement in a process that we hope doesn't become highly politicized were framed by anti-trapping, hunting, fishing, sports shooting rhetoric. Sustainable youth organizations put great value in the tenets and the democratic processes of the Oregon Wildlife Policy, that's ORS 496-012, the North American Model of Wildlife Conservation, and the American System of Conservation Funding. We often hear that the model is outdated, uninformed, needs to be, the value statements that are contained in that need to be readjusted, et cetera, et cetera. I really don't know of a more democratic process that we can look at than the North American model. That's kind of the end of what I have to say, but I'm sitting on an ODFW, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service rehabilitation project here on the Steele Homestead. I just watched a river otter, a huge big male, eat a fish and crawl up on one of the logs not 70 yards from my house. We all share this great love for Oregon and its outdoors, and we all are owed the best director this commission can find. So we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you so much. Kurt, thank you, friend.
Thank you, Stan. Let's go to Carrie Spurgeon, please.
Chair Walls and the commission, thank you for allowing me to speak. First off, my name's Carrie Spurgeon. I'm the president of the Oregon State Shooting Association, as well as the secretary of the Oregon Association of Shooting Ranges. I'm a lifelong sportsman and outdoorsman, working with youth, and I'm also on the U.S. rifle team, headed to the World Championships in a month. I would like, first of all, Director Melcher, thank you for your years of service and leadership. It's been critical. It's been critical. As a part of the Oregon Association of Shooting Ranges, we've interacted with your department around the range improvement dollars that come through the Pittman-Robertson grants. There's this selection process is one of the most critical things this commission can and must do, and it needs to be continued. And I'd like to commend the commission for spending as much time and even more time on the process, because if you don't have that good process up front, then you have missteps in the back end. And so thank you for spending the time on just the process. With that, I have two topics in the process that I would like you to consider. One is that with the funding for ODFW being largely from Pittman-Robertson funding, I think it's north of 80%. Not that much. Okay, go ahead and correct me if that's warranted, but it's $20 million plus is my understanding. We want to make sure that the stakeholder list is complete, as with others that have discussed. The sports shooting organizations are not included in the stakeholder list, and I would ask that at least the Oregon Association of Shooting Ranges be included, because we do have ongoing interactions with ODF&W around using those dollars and making the best use of those dollars for places for Oregonians to practice and exercise safely. So I think that's important. So that's the first issue. The second issue that I think should be addressed as a part of the commission prior to the final selection of the director is that the commission should be whole. Last year there was a bill that increased the commission from 6 to 7. It's my understanding. Again, correct me if I'm wrong or outdated information here. It's my understanding that the 7th commissioner has not been appointed, and that largely addresses representation on this commission for the selection process from Eastern Oregon. It should support all of Oregon. And so that 7th commissioner should be appointed, as well as there are, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 commissioners that have yet to be appointed or reappointed in this room today. And I would suggest that before the final selection is complete, that the commission be returned to whole. Having 3 of 7 in full standing is not the best place to be.
Yeah,
again,
hey, Mr. Spurgeon, you're at your overtime, so I just want to let you know.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carrie. We'll go to John Ogan, and John, you're the last person, so go ahead.
You're on mute, John. John, you're on mute.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield, Hyde, Commissioners, and Director Melcher. My name is John Ogan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Natural Resources Office of the Coquille Indian Tribe. My comments and requests today are offered on behalf of Chair Mead. She sends her regrets that she was not able to move her day around to offer the testimony herself. She also wanted to ensure that I send her best wishes for you and your family in this time. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the recruitment plan that's been made publicly available. I have a specific element that I would like to address to the commission, and I do have, I hope that my comments may prompt what I think is a very reasonable and doable adjustment to the recruitment plan in whole. First, very pleased to see that the recruitment plan includes the opportunity for public forum or public fora to meet with candidates, hear what their vision is for the leadership of this department. Kudos to those who organized the plan for that. Similarly, and again, I won't speak to the completeness or the balance within the stakeholders tests or the stakeholders groups list. I see in the recruitment plan an opportunity somewhere in the process to engage stakeholders and hear their views about the direction of the department. What is glaringly lacking, however, is a specific opportunity for the federally recognized tribes in Oregon to meet with the applicants identified as potential finalists of the commission. I want to speak to a bit about that. You know, there are 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. And at this point in time, as we sit here today, each and every one of them has a special legal relationship with the work that the director will be guiding as with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. There are 3 of the federally recognized tribes have co-management rights established in federal courts. There are 5 tribes who have recently entered into historic cooperative management agreements with the state of Oregon. That is legacy work for each commissioner who is present here today. You know, I would submit, as well as Director Melcher. The tribes are sovereign. The public forum is not the appropriate place for the sovereign tribes of Oregon, the original stewards of the fish and wildlife and the habitats that they depend, to engage potential finalists for this critically important position for the state of Oregon, and critically important not only for the fish and wildlife resources managed by the state of Oregon, but for the overall government to government relationship that Oregon's federally recognized tribes have with the state of Oregon in full. My request would be, and I think this can be accommodated without doing violence to the ambitious schedule, but I would ask that the recruitment plan be approved by the commission, but with the specific amendment that it is modified to provide a specific opportunity for federally recognized tribes in Oregon to meet with the applicants that are identified as potential finalists for consideration at the commission. I was pleased to hear Director Melcher say that the screening committee may ultimately include the tribal liaison of the governor's office. We're not sure if that's the case, or potentially the chair of the Legislative Commission on Indian Services. Those individuals, one or both, would do great service to the steering committee itself, but they cannot give voice on behalf of Oregon's sovereign tribes. In fact, if they are added to the steering committee, I think they'll be instrumental in organizing how Oregon's 9 tribes, or those that choose to engage in the way that the Coquille tribe would like to, they can help facilitate that part of the recruitment process. So,
hey, John,
yes,
can you wrap up? Can you wrap
Yep,
up?
absolutely. So again, that's the request, is to, if you move forward with the recruitment plan, specifically today, identify for the record that there will be an opportunity for the tribes to meet with the potential finalists. Thank you, Kurt and commissioners.
Thank you, John. And that concludes our public testimony.
Chair Wall.
Yes.
This is Senator Brock Smith. Josh had some internet issues, and so he's now online. And thank you to Michelle for getting him that information.
Thank you for catching that. Let's go back then to Josh Betzworth. Go ahead, Josh.
Chair Wall, Director Melcher, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Hey, Kurt, sorry to see you go. Congratulations on a great career. What I would say is there's a specific guideline in law and the traditional model of wildlife governance for North America that any director should have in mind when applying for this job. We have gotten away from that model, and it's starting to cost us. We're starting to see things on a socioeconomic and an economic and an ecological issues. I would say that some of the most important criteria for picking the next leader of our great agency would be to return to those very successful management model that has been so successful for us in Oregon in the past. The guidelines, or the sideboards, if you will, that are in ORS of picking the next commissioner, those supersede the feelings or the wants of the commissioners themselves. They're put there to protect the public interest and to give direction to commissioners. I would just simply leave it at, please follow those guidelines. Please make sure that when you are selecting or working towards the selection process, that one of the key factors that the new director will follow is implementing ORS the way it is. On a personal note, I would leave it, the next director, I would like to see them follow in Kurt's footsteps in supporting staff in their growth, and then, of course, the work they do every day. I'll go ahead and cede the floor. I know everybody's been there for a long time. I sure appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and thanks for keeping at it till you got through to us to testify. Commissioner Labhart, it looks like you have a point or a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I don't have a way to put my name up without just raising my hand. So I have a comment from, first of all, thanks to all the people who did testify today. We appreciate your comments. Those are very important, and I'm pretty sure the commission heard you clearly. I would like to elaborate just a little bit. I heard at least 3 of the commenters talk about the public process. We have listed 85 stakeholder groups that MODIS, the executive recruiter, is reaching out to, which includes literally thousands of interested folks. If we've missed one of those, and Michelle can provide the list, it's on the website of those 85 stakeholder groups. So if we've missed somebody, we need to let Michelle know so that she can let Patrick at MODIS know who that is. So that we can, he's in the process right now of setting up 20-minute interviews with those stakeholder groups, and he's getting them on the calendar to try to reach as many as he possibly can, so we can make sure that we have significant public input into this process, and he's prepared to do that. It's in the process of doing that now. I did talk to Patrick yesterday regarding the tribes, and because the tribes are not members of the public, they're not a stakeholder group, they're sovereign nations, and they should be in that category with consulting on this important issue and picking the next director. And so he assured me that he was going to reach out to the tribes in that mode and set up an appointment with them. So I hope that helps some of the tribes in terms of gathering their input from the 9 federally recognized tribes into this process as a sovereign nation entities, and they hold very important status and input into the director's position. So hopefully that helps, John, that he is going to be reaching out to the tribes. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart. Let me just kind of summarize where we are right now and what's next. And I would like to come back to the question about tribal involvement as well. There were questions about who's on and who's not on the stakeholder list, and we can, if there are names that we need to add, we can add those, and MODIS can work from that list. There was also a question, and we may need to get back to people on this, to Senator Brock Smith, on how the questions will be answered, but we will be talking a little bit about the process for that public forum. So I think what would be useful is maybe just have if commissioners now have questions for the director or comments, now is the time. And just before we do that, I would like to mention there have been questions, as you've heard, come up about tribal involvement in the recruitment process. And I will be asking commissioners for your comments or ideas about that. But we will not make a decision on how that tribal involvement will happen, because that, of course, is a collaboration between the agency, the governor's office, and the tribes about what that will look like. So would love to hear from the commissioners what would be useful to you in the recruitment process, but we won't make a choice today about what the tribal involvement will look like. So with that, could I ask commissioners, do you have any questions? Do you have points you want to make now about the recruitment plan or any components in it? Commissioner King.
Thank you, Chair Wall, but Commissioner Spellbrink is before me, but he just took down his hand. Do you not have anything there?
Commissioner Spellbrink, you're the one commissioner.
I can wait till you call too. But I was just, had a response there to the testimony from the Coquille tribe, John Ogan. And I just wondered, I guess, just clarify now, does the commission itself have, can we make a decision on that? Is that something we can do as far as, that opportunity for the tribal representatives to meet with final candidates? Or is that something that we don't have say in, or I guess that's what I'm just looking for, that answer.
Commissioner Spellbrink, let me try to answer that, and then I would ask that the director also weigh in, especially if there's anything else to add. We can, what I'd like to do today is hear from commissioners any ideas or options that they would like to consider for tribal involvement, but not to make a choice today about that, because that it's important to talk with and collaborate with the governor's office and the tribes about what that would look like, rather than have us decide today exactly what tribal involvement would look like.
Okay, yeah, thanks on that, Chair Wall. And I guess that would be my suggestion. And like I say, we won't make a decision on it today, but would be, you know, considering the importance of the department's relationship with our tribal partners. I would suggest if we can take that opportunity to, maybe provide an extra opportunity for the tribes to meet with the final candidates, that'd be great. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellbrink. And commissioners, I can see Commissioners Labhart, Khalil, and King. I can't see Commissioner Spellbrink or Hatfield Hyde. So if the other the two who I can't see, if others will let me know. But I do know that your hand is up, Commissioner King. So why don't you go ahead?
Yes. Can you? Oh, I'll take it down. Thank you. Yes. Sorry. I think I'm about to get kicked out of my little library room here. So if I'm seeming distracted, I would like, I guess, a bit more clarity, again, because things are moving so fast, because there were some things I could not see, etc. Could we have everything that is current in one spot? And therefore I can make comments that maybe aren't outdated. Like, for example, like the bullets that I have that I worked on with Commissioner Hatfield Hyde was completely not what she read, which is fine. I mean, it was edited. But for example, there's a second one where I talked a lot about, sustainability metrics and things like that. So we touched on it a little bit on the copy that I have with climate change and biodiversity loss, but there's all of this other element that's not there. And same, I think, with the stakeholder list. There are, I'm sure, things that are missing, or things that, like, I just haven't had a chance to look at it deeply enough and realize, like, maybe people got inadvertently left out. I think this speaks to the timeline, like, we just need to calm the farm and everybody get all the data all at once and look at it and then maybe circle back. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, or maybe, like, who should I send this stuff to make sure it actually gets to where it needs to be? So thank you.
Let me answer that last question first, and then Director Melcher is ready to speak as well. I think that we should continue to use Director Melcher as the hub for sending things to, so that it's all centralized there. And Director Melcher, do you want to speak to whether we could recollect all of the information that's currently on the Commission website in answer to Commissioner King's question?
But yeah, I think, it is all on the website right now. I think if you all don't want to move forward in adopting the recruitment plan today, then we'll do it all over again on some other future date. I will say that probably, this might be the case of letting perfection be the enemy of the good, in that, at least from my perspective, the minor wordsmithings of the desired attributes are not going to change the applicant pool. So those are my 2 cents, but I don't have a vote, so we'll do whatever you all want.
Well, I guess I would say, Kurt, number one, is not minor wordsmithing. I mean, what I read is completely off the chart different than what I edited. So it's not minor. And also, I think things, at least on my part, things are getting missed because, and I discussed this before, like, when I checked the Commission website, something was wrong, or the matter or something. I couldn't see anything. And, this meeting came up in just really a quick couple of weeks. And so things are getting crisscrossed because the timeline is, as I said, ambitious. Like, I think we need to make sure that people are getting all of the information, that they are getting current information. I did send in these bullets, but apparently not to the right place. Things like that. I'll happily send this all again. But I think some of the concerns that I'm hearing, like some of the things that are missing, like there was no mention of the North American model nowhere in the description. or something like that. Like maybe it's just because it's all moving too fast. I'm just offering it out there. That's all. Like not trying to be a perfectionist. I'm just trying to make sure we get the total package, because what exactly are we sending to Modus? And if we're sending things to Modus and the parts are missing, what does that then mean? That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Commissioner King. And we have another, Commissioner Labhart has his hand up, and then there's one other hand up that I believe is Commissioner Hatfield Hyde. Commissioner Labhart.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify, and maybe I didn't do a very good job of it, so that's why I wanted to try again. When I talked to Patrick yesterday from Modus, who is the executive recruiter that's kind of taking the lead on this, his intent is to reach out to the tribes and set up a process with them in coordination with the department and the governor's office. So there is no separate thing going on here, but that there is a process that he wants to work through with contacting the tribes, the 9 recognized tribes, in consultation with the governor's office to gather their input, whatever that looks like. And I'm not proposing that it look a certain way or not, but it's just that the tribes will be involved. That's my point.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart. Let's go to, is it Commissioner Hatfield Hyde? Do you have your hand up as well?
I do, thank you. And I apologize to everyone and those that gave testimony for not being on camera. It's the internet is fairly poor. I think I'm advocating for us to take a deep breath here, but I don't think all is lost. I just sent Michelle the 2 attribute bullet points that Commissioner King had forwarded, I think, if we want to take a look at those. I would also like to acknowledge that there are a lot of moving parts going on here. We're back in a virtual meeting setting. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been working off my computer, my iPad, and my phone trying to get revised documents and what's today's work. We didn't have a paper copy of what's happening today in front of us, so we're all kind of scrambling. But I think we're mostly okay, is my feeling. I think that we have a deep commitment to listening to our stakeholders who have been weighing in amazingly. And I think we've all been reading and looking through that. And so I guess what I would say is I would like to take a crack at that attribute that I brought up earlier, not to create more problems or division, but to hopefully create less problems and division. And the reason why is I think the language as it stands, which I'm struggling to pull up here since I've been pulling up other things on my iPad, is a little bit divisive.
Let me, Commissioner Hatfield Hyde, thank you. And do you want to go through this, or are you okay if I try to pull this together with a bit of a summary and then propose a way forward?
Yeah, that's fine. I guess I want to be really deliberate about why. Sorry, I'm struggling to communicate here. When and now we're looking at things on tiny screens.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Things are getting missed and lost. I'm with you. With you.
It's okay. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah,
I think what I'm wanting us to do, Commissioner, Chair Wall, is make sure that in the way we communicate this bullet point, so the original language is someone who understands and appreciates both the interests and concerns of traditional stakeholders and those of citizens whose engagement with habitat, fish, and wildlife is primarily wildlife viewing, hiking, habitat protection and conservation, or ecosystem services provided by public resource assets. And then it goes on. But I think what we have all recognized since we've been on the commission is that that people who may be in what we call the traditional category are also very interested in habitat protection, conservation, and ecosystem services. And I just think it's an unnecessary to divide us. I just think we need to move forward with all Oregonians having that ethic of, managing fish and wildlife in trust for them and future generations. So I think that is sort of between that point and also this point that I think goes back to the big tent, which is the others in Oregon that we want to include, which is what we want, right? We want everyone to have an opportunity to be part of this. So anyway, that was what my revised language was about. And I think you also probably see Commissioner King's language that we had worked on up there as well. So Mary, can you make some magic out of this?
I can try. And
okay.
Commissioner Khalil also has her hand up. Commissioner Khalil, are you okay if we go ahead and deal with this one, or do you have a comment on it that would?
I mean, it's a very short comment. It's just to say there's always a balance in hiring between what you put on the job description and what comes out in the candidates and in the interviews and things like that. So I encourage us to continue to think about, to Kurt's point, perfect being the enemy of good, and also, are we setting ourselves up for the right process when it comes to interviewing and looking at the candidates to see what kind of balance they strike?
Exactly. Good points. And importantly, I'm going to just repeat sort of what one of the things you just said, which is we need to figure out the process and move forward on the process, and whether or not the recruitment plan is acceptable as it is. We have heard from several people the interest in addressing the question of how to talk about big tent. I have heard everybody talk about wanting it to be a big tent, to be inclusive, to listen carefully to everybody. And I think that we could, even after today, we could continue to work on the actual language of that bullet to make sure that it works for all of the commissioners. And unless Kurt tells me that that's not the case, then I think that what we could do is look at the recruitment plan as it's in front of us, recognize that we still have work to do on the, I'll call it for want of a complete name at this point, the big tent bullet, and look at the other one, Commissioner King, that you submitted, but maybe move ahead today. 2 other points. So if that one is okay, and 2 other points that came up that I think are important, just to summarize, are the timeline is ambitious and it is likely to change, as we have heard today. So I think we do have time to not leave behind commissioners and not leave behind other people. We do need to accept the plan if we can, and keep moving this forward so we can get the position posted and started. And on the tribal work, yes, there will be tribal, we will work on that. The governor's office and the executive recruiter and the tribes will be talking about that. So we will have involvement, we don't know what it looks like yet. So those three, I think, are the three that are still questions. And I would, unless, Kurt, there's anything you would say to change those, then the only other remaining question, I think, is whether commissioners have other pieces they want to address in the recruitment plan as it stands now.
Shit. Sorry. Hey. I'm sorry, Chair. I'm trying to take down my hand. I hit the button. I'm sorry. I don't have issues with the recruitment plan. I have a question about the interim director. It's a different thing. So I'm trying to take my hand down. Sorry.
Okay. Do you need to ask that question now, or can we let Kurt answer the question first and then come to you, Commissioner King?
Yes, I can wait.
Kurt, anything you would add about moving forward with the recruitment plan?
No, Chair Wall, I think what you've laid out is fine.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner King, is there a question about the appointment that we can answer now?
Well, no, so we mentioned likely, given the timeline, given all the moving parts, things that are happening, etc. Even if we find someone, can they be here in, 60 days? Again, all of this is really ambitious because next week is February 1st. So what exactly do we need to do moving forward? And is that the next commission meeting about thinking about who the interim director is or will be, or how's that going to work? I don't see that anywhere in my paper storm that's happening.
We do need to have that person appointed. It will be interim. It could last longer than, as you say, this could go on more than 60 days. We will appoint somebody in February as the plan now stands, and that somebody will not be a potential candidate for the director position. So we will have somebody that could follow and be ready to take over when Kurt exits. And we will take that up in the February meeting.
Yeah, so we'll be giving a list of these people, et cetera. We'll discuss this further in terms of in the February meeting and paperwork, essentially, is what you're saying to me.
I'm not sure how much of the paperwork will have a list of names. We will have at least a recommendation from the director.
Oh, okay.
For that specific role, yes. So then can we go? I don't.
Bob has his hand up. I don't know if you can see him.
I can't. Go ahead, Commissioner Spellbrink.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wall, and maybe I'll ask the director this. Okay, so you feeling we don't need to do anything else as a commission to ensure, to make a commitment to the tribal representatives that they'll have an opportunity to sit down with the final candidates. There's nothing else we need to, have that come from this commission at this time or anything. Is that the way you feel, Kurt?
Yeah, Chair Wall and Commissioner Spellbrink, I think it's been clear from the discussion today that we will include some tribal engagement step, and I don't think I need anything more specific than that from you here today.
Thanks.
Is there another hand up that I can't see?
Mark, Commissioner Labhart in the commission room. I can see him.
Go ahead, Commissioner Labhart.
Thank you, Mary. I just wondered, maybe I could try this to see if there's some consensus to it. I think it's important that we at least get the director recruitment out. So, because that's going to take about a month, that process on the street with DAS through their process. Is there a way that we could say that we put out the recruitment and with the qualifications, the minimum qualifications, the position description, and those kind of things, and say, here's the attributes that we have today. It may be modified a little bit, but for the most part, these are what we're going to go with. Because if we delay, again, we're going to have another notice of a public meeting and have discussion again. It might be a week or two before we could get back, considering notice processes before we can, put out that if we could get something at least out on the street now, and we could bring up the attributes in terms of the screening process that we go through, but at least get the announcement on the street, because it's got to be on the street for at least a month, and then we're still going to go through a whole bunch of public processes once that closes and we begin the public interview processes. So I think there's still a tremendous opportunity for questions to be asked of the candidates. In other words, I'm proposing that we go ahead and move the motion forward that has been drafted by staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart, and I'll come right back to you for a motion unless somebody has an objection to doing that. We did hear the answer that yes, we can move forward, and yes, we can continue to work on the 2 bullets that are left that we don't have, that we want more work on. So I think that you're right that it's important to move forward and get this process started and get the documents out there. And we will continue to work on the pieces that have some discussion that still needs to happen. And there will be work with the governor's office and the tribes on what tribal engagement might look like. We have a hand up. I'll come right back to you, Commissioner Labhart, but we have a hand up from Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde.
Thank you, Mary. I absolutely agree that we should move forward today. I want to really understand how between now and probably our February meeting, we are, having a proposed modification of that attribute. Like it's all out there for anybody that wants to see. So it goes to Kurt, and then we just ask the department to bring back another potential version, or what's the actual process we're doing with that right now? Because I think there was confusion from the last meeting on how to provide comment on that.
Good question. Kurt, do you want to try to answer it?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, sure, Chair Wall. I mean, I think it's a little awkward place to be when you have 1 or 2 commissioners essentially developing what the final language is, and then having us adopt it or having us somehow put it in as the final language without the concurrence of the other 4 or 5 commissioners. So I know I hate to belabor this, but I really think you should work out the language today. We've got okay. Space. It's not like we're writing a thesis here. It's a few sentences. We ought to be able to work it out, assuming there's agreement. And if there's not agreement, you can just take that bullet out.
I really appreciate that, Kurt. I agree. I didn't mean to think that this was going to be such a big deal. I think we should just take a big deep breath and go with it. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
I would just ask, I guess, I'll send in the document unless someone has it, the one with my 2 bullets that are nowhere. So
I already sent those in, Commissioner King, to Michelle, and she had them up on the tiny screen. So we can.
I saw one, but not the other, is what I'm getting at. I still don't see them fully unless she was editing it. I'm just making sure.
So let's take the easy one and pull it up. This would be Commissioner King's second bullet point, which is based on the big tent concept. And I will read it aloud and see what we think.
Go ahead.
It says, a generational diplomat and bridger who is committed to connecting Oregonians from their many diverse backgrounds in an inclusive way to the fish and wildlife that ODF&W manages in trust for them and future generations. A leader that is committed to a big tent that all Oregonians are included in.
To be clear, your proposal is to go with that one for in place of the earlier one for bullet 13, correct?
Since those bullets don't have a bullet point, yes, I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yes.
And I'm fine with that as well. I was just trying to further wordsmith because we got a new rendition out late. But yes, that would be my recommendation.
Commissioners, the question is whether this bullet works or I think the question should be, can you live with this bullet as the replacement for the one that was in there earlier that started out someone who understands and appreciates? And if you can, then we have one of the bullets taken care of.
I'm good.
I see no hands. It's hard for me to see all of you on the screen. So do any of the commissioners object to going with that language in place of the current 13?
I almost hate to bring this up, but is the big tent analogy going to resonate with everybody who reads this? I struggle with analogies sometimes in job descriptions and things like this, because though they make sense to us, they may not make sense to everybody. And so I wonder if there's a different way that we can word it that's more clear about what we mean specifically. But it's not the hill I'm going to die on. To use another analogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that, this can just be endless. I agree.
Like, for example, if you were an English language learner, like, would an analogy like that make sense? I'm, throwing that out there.
Yeah, did we ever send this through the equity screen that you had mentioned, Dr. Khalil? So, because maybe that'll answer that question.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Has that happened, Chair Wall?
The answer to that.
Okay.
How about, I have an option. How about instead of a big tent, we say a leader that is committed to including all Oregonians?
I like that.
Oh.
It looks like we have alternative language. Does anybody not agree with the alternative language, in which case we have this one finished? Hearing no objection, I'm going to assume that the sense of the commission is that the alternative language, as just revised by Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde, is acceptable to the commissioners.
Yes.
Then the only other piece, I believe, is the last one that you had, Commissioner King, and whether you want to discuss that one and try and include it or not include it.
I think it goes with, for example, one of the bullets talks about climate change impacts and biodiversity loss. And that's one of the many things that the stakeholders mentioned, like we need to keep all of that work going, essentially. And so that bullet that's above the bullet we just discussed is the understanding one, the understanding, experience, and willingness, because, and I say specifically, of incorporating department's ocean and climate change policy and an additional commitment to sustainability metrics as they relate to capital construction, recycling, and hybrid and electric vehicles. So, yeah, I think it needs a specific mention because I've read through the ones at least that I have, and I saw no specific mention to those things, just those vague references, if you will.
Questions from other commissioners to Commissioner King about this bullet. And does anybody need to hear it again, or can you see it well enough on the screen?
Oh, I see Bob's hands up.
Okay, Commissioner Spellbrink.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I guess I had a question about all decision-making. Because I guarantee you there will be decisions where ocean and climate change policy probably,
Just say. Also, add, I have a version where I put hybrid and electric vehicles, meaning because obviously we'll be in hybrid world. In fact, I think Commissioner Laphart has a hybrid, so we'll be in hybrid world for a while, I think. So.
Was that not read in, I think?
No, it wasn't read in.
Okay.
And I see it now in orange, so.
There's. Yeah. Commissioners, can you live with this language in the last bullet as it's been read to you?
This is Mark. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Mark.
So I think we're drilling too deep here. I think if I could, Commissioner King, if I would propose maybe just an understanding and experience and a willingness to continue incorporating the department's policies and stop, because it's not just a climate and ocean policy that the new director must implement. The director must implement all the policies that the commission has approved. So if we're singling out somebody else is going to say, well, what about the policy? We have another policy on X. So if we just say incorporating the department's policies, we want that person to have an understanding, experience, and willingness to incorporate and implement the department's policies, something to that effect, and just put a period there rather than trying to highlight specific policies for attention, because they have to implement all the policies.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Mark.
I see you waving your hand. So are you okay with that, Commissioner King?
Oh, so this to me was a bullet that follows up the climate change impacts and biodiversity loss. I mean, again, like you have to understand these bullets aren't by themselves. I wrote this in context with all the rest of them. So this was kind of, I guess, a follow-on, if you will, because in reading all the rest of them, it does talk about a whole lot of other specific things, like you must work with the legislature. There's a bunch of things listed. So I just wanted the climate and ocean thing listed. That's all. But I think, like Kurt has mentioned, like we really shouldn't parse this too much. We could be here all day. So, I think I just wanted to make sure that we get something that at least we've all seen and all agree with to the recruiters, and and so that we can move forward. Because I agree with everyone. We need to move forward and make sure that we start the 20-day or 30-day clock to get going. So
what calling it out specifically says to me is that we may get someone who looks at that and thinks, oh, I've done a lot of ocean and climate change policy work. Maybe I'm a good candidate for this. So it might bring someone, yeah. Oops.
Then I think we go back to the question, can we live with this one without the all, and then we can move forward? I'm going to assume that silence means we can move forward with these two as we have revised them. And I think we now have then a complete packet or a complete set of materials to vote on. So if there are no other questions, commissioners, can we get a motion on the recruitment plan for the director?
Chair Wall, Becky has her hand up.
Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
Hello. I am ready to make a motion. I move to approve the recruitment plan for the Fish and Wildlife Director position.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the recruitment plan for the Fish and Wildlife Director position. Michelle, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wall, I also see that council has her hand up.
Oh, thank you for catching it. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to note for the record that there's a little bit of grammatical typos in the second bullet, and to say that we'll do that bit of cleanup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I amend my motion to include grammar and
perfect. Yeah.
Whatever.
Grammatical corrections or something.
Grammatical corrections.
Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. King, as the seconder, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am good, and I'm going to have to leave soon, so we need to vote.
This is Mark. I have a question about, are we approving the plan as submitted or the plan with these revisions?
We are approving the plan with these revisions to the attributes.
Okay, so I adapt my motion one more time to approving the plan with the adaptation to the attributes. Is that good enough, Erin?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And we'll just note that the page we're looking at with those adaptations starts with Commissioner King edits to identify it for the record.
And then Commissioner King has to approve as a second to that.
Oh, yes, I approve. I second.
Thank you. Michelle, will you call the roll before we lose Commissioner King then?
King?
Yes.
Labhart?
Yes.
Hatfield-Hyde?
Yes.
Belbring?
Yes.
Khalil?
Yes.
Wall?
Yes. Commissioners, thank you very much. I think that we are ready to adjourn unless there's anything last minute for the good of the order or from the director for going forward.
Nothing from me, Chair Wall. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and to the people who testified, wrote in, and who were online for this meeting. We are adjourned.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.